Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to discuss what if Gandalf took the One Ring. So let's start with buffs. Here at rank 1 we have original buff of Gandalf, modifier type leadership, allied infantry and cavalry units near Gandalf gain plus 75% armor to magic and elemental damage, earn experience 2 times faster and become immune to fear and terror. Stacks with buffs and spells. Passive ability. Wings of Flame is a modified version of a shield bubble. Once on 30 seconds, Gandalf gains plus 75% armor for 10 seconds and his damage is multiplied by 220%. And everyone who attacks Gandalf at this form is harmed by the fire of his wings. This is auto ability, but you can activate it manually by shortcut U. At level 3, heroes near Gandalf earn experience 3 times faster. Passive ability. At rank 5, heroes near Gandalf resist knockback. Passive ability. At level 7, heroes near Gandalf gain plus 50% armor. At level 10 we have a debuff that makes enemy units near Gandalf lose minus 30% armor, damage, speed, and magical attacks becomes 2 times weaker. He attacks with a new weapon that has the same damage and stats as the original Stormwing Galadriel had. 1000 magical damage and 300 of siege type damage that is strong against monsters, machines and structures. But Gandalf attacks structures, monsters and machines with new lightning weapon that is ranged weapon that has 500 siege damage that is doubled against monsters and machines, and it will cause 3000 damage to Balrog and Grond. Siege type of damage has 15% impact on Balrog, so it will be 450 per hit for Balrog that has 5800 health, so Gandalf will need 12 hits to destroy Balrog. And 4000 damage to Grond that has 50% armor to this type of damage, so it will be 2000, and Grond has 50,000 health, and we have additional 100 magical damage. Gandalf has 4000 health, and at rank 3 he gains the Ring of Fire Narya, which grants him and every hero who will pick up that ring plus 105% additional health with each rank, and it will fire the hearts of allied units near the bearer, granting them plus 105% attack speed and 102% damage with each rank. So for each level of the hero, the range of the effect will become wider on plus 60 units of range. So at rank 5 the range will be 300 and at rank 10 it will be 600. Here you can read the descriptions to that buff. I've decided to make it more easy to read than you saw that for Narya. The only thing that the information about range created distortion in the text, so I haven't included that to description. I've also changed the description for Narya, and as you can see the range for all special objects buffs is the same and unified. Ring of Narya Gandalf gains in that form in which he has reached the rank 3. And after death he loses Narya ring and every hero can pick up it and strengthen themselves. So let's overview the Lord of the Rings Gandalf the Dark and his new active abilities. At rank 3 becomes available a new ability that allows Gandalf to strike enemies with lightnings on unlimited distance. The ability causes 500 magical damage at radius of 20, so only the units in the center of the cursor will be injured. Additionally, the type of damage Nugget will cause 2000 damage to Balrog that has 70% resistance to it, so it will be 600 for him, and 300 flame damage that affects all area of the cursor and additionally cause 600 points of damage for monsters and machines, and 1200 for grunt, depending on that object's armor. We have here new visual effect. At rank 5, Gandalf can use Necromancy to turn allied units into undead servants. For different types of units we will have different shadow replacement. These objects cost 0 common points, so with that any player can strengthen their fraction with more units regardless to common points limit. But it affects only one horde at a time, and to summon an undead we have to sacrifice a horde. Technically it's a replacement or exchange of a horde on a shadow soldier. They were balanced in the next way. We are replacing one horde on one shadow soldier. The shadow soldier has as a rule half of the health that a horde that contains sacrificed units had. The number of maximum health for every shadow was created by multiplying max health of a single unit in a horde on the number of units in the horde and divided it by 2. Every shadow has the same damage as a single unit in the horde, but the radius of impact of an attack is multiplied by number of units in the horde. I made it so to avoid the situation in which shadow soldiers are stronger than heroes. Technically they are heroic units, but more like bare white. When I've had the idea for this ability from the very beginning, I've planned to make them look like bare white, but then I've decided to make them dark, like creature of magic and shadow, in the same way as visual effect for Gandalf's ability at rank 10, that we will discuss in the end of the video. Almost all of these units can reach maximum level 5, and 2 elite heroic units from elite battalions can reach rank 10. And with each rank, the same way as for heroes, their health and damage is multiplied by from 5 to 3% with each next rank. Instead of Lemadon Clansman Battalion, we will have a Shadow of Lemadon Clansman. This unit has 1425 health. Because the horde has 15 units, each of them have 190 points of health. That gives us 2850 points of health. That is higher as in some lower rank heroes, that's why we divide health. Sword of the Shadow causes 70 points of slash type damage, while Lemadon Clansman without upgrade has 50 and with upgraded sword has 100 damage. But the radius of an attack of the Shadow is now 15 times wider, and the soldier drains 30% of life power that was taken from a unit in one hit. That doesn't mean that the Shadow restores 30% of its own health while attacking other units, but it means that if an attack causes 70 points of damage to a unit, the Shadow Soldier will drain 21 points of that unit health, because 30% from 70 is 21. But we have the radius of 15, so the Shadow can cause damage to more units and because of this drain more life power. That is the formula that is used for all replacement we will overview, but with different percentage. Instead of Linhir Spearman, we will have a Shadow of Linhir Spearman. He drains life and has one ability when he reaches rank 3. That I will show you when we will talk about the Lord of the Rings dying, because that is the ability that was originally created for him. Has unique logic, and I don't want to spoil King Dain's new abilities. With Necromancy, Gandalf will replace Losenarch Axeman on a shadow of that Axeman. It drains more life force than other shadows, that is 0.5 or 50%, and when the shadow reaches rank 3, it will be able to resurrect itself from death 2 times. Shadow replacement of soldiers of Minas Tirith can drain life, and at rank 3 has the ability that allows to scare enemies. That is the same ability of terror that Galadriel and Sauron had, but was removed from their ring form. But for Shadow soldiers that range is 100, while mentioned heroes had 200s. Replacement of Spearman of Minas Tirith drains life, and at rank 3 has an ability to turn into shadow and flame, and fly through enemies causing damage. That is a modified ability of Gimli Sleep, but it causes damage in the process of moving through enemies. Shadows of Penasgilin can move unseen and drain 30% of stolen life. At rank 3 they are able to activate abilities that gives them plus 50% speed and armor for 20 seconds, but they are not able to crush. Gandalf will use the power of the One Ring to forge from the bodies of riders of Minas Tirith a shadow rider that moves unseen, detects hidden units, drains life, and at rank 3 is able to move through the sky at long distances. It can damage units while landing. With Necromancy, Gandalf will use blood and bones of Blackroot Vale archers to create a shadow archer that poisons enemies and drains life. So he has only 4 points of damage, but once the shadow attacked a unit, it will constantly harm that unit for 10 seconds, with interval in 1 second. So that is 40 points of damage, and it will drain 0.6 life force from a hit. At rank 3 it is able to pin enemy hero to the ground, to make it immobile for 15 seconds. From archers of Minas Tirith, Gandalf forges a 4-headed shadow archer that sees everything. It can become completely invisible while standing, and at rank 5 is able to teleport to any location on the map. From Ithilien Rangers, Gandalf creates a Shadow Ranger that is able to switch weapons, drains 20% of enemy units' lives, moves unseen, and when reached rank 5, is able to activate the ability that allows him to drain 50% of the enemy unit's life force. His damage is multiplied 2 times, and from killed units will rise living corpses. These corpses are weak and more to distract than to cause any damage. Using bodies of Dawn Amro's men-at-arms, Gandalf can create a Berserker, who can eat enemies, restoring his health. At rank 5, Berserker can become Furious, which gives him plus 66% damage, his attacks is getting wider, and he drains 90% of enemy units' life. This effect lasts for 30 seconds. From bodies of Sworn Knights of Dol Amros, Gandalf creates a Shadow Rider. The Shadow moves unseen, can drain life. At rank 3 gives minus 77% crush deceleration for cavalry units. At rank 5 can use the ability that gives him plus 25% armor, plus 33% damage and minus 80% crush deceleration, making him almost unstoppable for 20 seconds. At rank 8, the rider can activate the ability that allows him to knock back enemies. The ability works like a whirlwind, but with small amount of damage. The main idea of it is to push back enemies and create chaos. Gandalf is using the dark craft of necromancy to forge from the bodies of Fountain Guard a crystal soldier. It reflects 20% of received damage, drains 20% of life, has original buff of Fountain Guard that gives plus 10% armor to every nearby Gondor's battalion, up to 50%. At rank 5 is able to share his life power, so he can heal allied units, even if they are attacking or are under attack, plus slowly replenishes hordes. But this ability also takes his life, so it's better to use the ability if the soldier has more than 80% health, otherwise the ability would simply drain him to death, especially if there is any additional damage buff. At rank 8, the soldier is able to use the ability Defensive Light, that debuffs enemies making them 25% slower, makes structures of his player invulnerable, but buildings cannot produce money or units, and abilities of allied heroes are recharging 50% faster. But unlike for Fountain Guard, for Crystal Soldiers, the last effect that decreases speed of recharging abilities doesn't stack. so activation this ability in several soldiers will not decrease reloading time more than 50%. The ability runs for 30 seconds. The range of the ability is 150, that is the same as visual effect, because the visual effect for Fountain Guard Battalion is wider than the effect of the ability. All of these units are vulnerable to magic, so for some viewers this ability will be too weak, considering the fact that technically we exchange a horde on a weaker unit that has less damage than a battalion, speaking more frankly, has damage of a one unit, has less health. But also for some viewers this ability will be OP, considering the fact that these units have additional abilities and their number is limited only by the time that is needed to create them. The ability is reloading after 3 minutes, so in 1 hour player can have 20 of them, if these units don't die in battles. Usefulness of this ability will depend on a strategy that is selected by a player. At rank 8, Gandalf turns into his Istary form for 60 seconds, which gives him plus 60% armor, and he kindles flames from his sword to burn enemies around. I wanted to recreate that visual effect from Harry Potter when Dumbledore used his firestorm. Actually, Gandalf's abilities were inspired by the combination of Dumbledore and Yamamoto from Bleach. At rank 3 for the very beginning I had the Phoenix ability, which was casted by both Z characters.
Істинна форма меча Сукіоку. Меча, який здійснить вирок. Дивіться.
Gandalf could kill enemies and restore his health. But it seemed too similar for me to this ability, so I replaced it with the lightnings to create diversity. At rank 10 Gandalf unleashes darkness, souls of killed cavalry to erase enemies from the ground. That is probably the strongest ability among all Ring Heroes abilities. That improved Word of Power technically is a copy of Wood Horses of Arwen, but it was made to move in all directions like a radial ability. As you remember from the book, that spell of Wood Horses was created by Elrond and Gandalf. Elrond unleashes the power of the river, and Gandalf had given it the form of riders. That is why this ability has such visual effect. One such cavalry unit causes 500 magical damage, while Flute Horses harms on 200 siege damage, which makes them stronger against structures, while Gandalf's Dark Ashes are stronger against units, because as a rule all structures are 2, 3 or more times resistant to magic than siege type of damage. Additionally, the ability causes only 20% damage for structures and 30% for heroes. But here important to add that it's not a single hit ability and that it is damage of one rider that harms enemy while crushing them, so it can kill heroes, especially those who are close to Gandalf, because in the same way as flute horses, the most amount of damage this ability causes at the start point. This is all about Gandalf. Thank you for watching and happy modding.